Good afternoon from the KVUE studio. We are interrupting your regular programming with breaking news this Monday afternoon. President Joe Biden just landing here in Austin this afternoon.
Take a good look. This is a live look at Austin Bergstrom International Airport, where Air Force One is on the ground right now. This afternoon, President Biden is going to speak at the LBJ Presidential Library to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act.
You can see Air Force One. Well, you could there for a second. Air Force One just landing at the Austin airport, so you can expect a ground stop there at the airport this afternoon as the plane taxis through to the caravan of vehicles to take the president to the LBJ Library down by the UT campus. We don't know the exact route. We assume the interstate will be involved there, so you're going to want to avoid that area if at all possible. Of course, at the LBJ Library event today, President Biden is also expected to speak about his proposal for the Supreme Court reform, as well as constitutional amendment that would strip the president's of immunity from prosecution. Now, we don't know exactly what the route that motorcade will take from the Austin airport to the LBJ Library today, but as you can imagine, officials warning everyone to expect a bit of extra traffic while the president makes his trip from the airport to the school and from the LBJ Library back to the airport later this afternoon.
That's right. Traffic is going to be extremely busy, and you can expect for TxDOT to start what it's calling rolling closures on major roadways. That is going to include I-35 and Texas 71 during this visit as the president moves from the airport to the LBJ Library and then back to Air Force One. Now, Manor Road and Red River Streets, both very close to the LBJ Library, so those two streets should have at least partial road closures this afternoon. Those should be starting soon since the president and Air Force One now on the ground. And travelers should also anticipate delays at Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Airport officials tell us during the president's arrival and departure, he just arrived, they will put a ground stop in place, and this means planes won't be able to land or take off. And if you are planning to fly today, you can expect delays of about 15 to 30 minutes.
As you can see live on your screen, Air Force One has touched down here in Austin with President Biden aboard. Now, the president's visit actually supposed to happen earlier this month, but it was postponed after the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania about 3 weeks ago. We know now that the airport and the LBJ Library along the motorcade route, security will be extra tight today, and as we've talked about already, expect heavy traffic as many roadways, including major thoroughfares like 71 and Interstate 35, will be closed down to allow the president's motorcade to go from the airport to the library and again back to the airport.
That's right, and I don't know if we can take this right now. Let's take a live look inside the LBJ Library. You can see quite a crowd is starting to gather inside there right now. This is where President Biden is going to speak in just a short time. Now, this event is set to start around 3. Of course, things running a little bit late this afternoon, so it might be around 3:30 when the president actually arrives. The president is expected to start speaking as soon as possible once he gets there. They're saying between about 3:30 and maybe 4. Now, this event is not open to the public, but KVUE will be streaming President Biden's remarks live on KVUE Plus. That's available on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. You can also hear and see the president speaking at the LBJ Library this afternoon on our website, kvue.com.
It will be a busy day here in the Lone Star State for the president. As we mentioned, he will speak at the LBJ Library today to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act that was signed, of course, back then by President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Once President Biden leaves Austin late this evening, he's headed to Houston. Tonight, he will pay his respects to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, the Congresswoman lying in state at Houston City Hall today. She died earlier this month after battling pancreatic cancer.
She had served in Congress since 1994, and before that, she was a Houston City Council member. All day, so many Houstonians have been visiting City Hall to come in, see her, and honor Jackson Lee's memory. And the president is set to pay his respects at around 7:30 tonight before heading back to the White House this evening.
Let's keep watching as Air Force One taxis there at Austin's airport today. The president will then exit the plane and immediately enter the motorcade. That motorcade, of course, will take him to the Lyndon Baines Johnson Presidential Library on the University of Texas campus, where again he will speak. They told us about 3:30. If he gets to the from the airport to the school, the schedule depends on the traffic, I guess, for him to get there and get situated for that. This is a little behind schedule. We were expecting the plane to land about 30 minutes ago. But as things happen sometimes, the delays took place today. The president touched down about 5 minutes ago and is now taxiing to that motorcade there at Austin's airport. Again, a ground stop is in effect, so no planes taking off or landing at this current time, as this plane has stopped all traffic at the airport for now. They will then resume flight. So if you have a flight this afternoon out of the airport, if you're driving to the airport, keep that in mind. Traffic will be heavy, and some of those flights may be delayed by 15 to 20 minutes later this afternoon.
That's right. Austin Bergstrom International Airport wanted to make sure people understood that this is why the ground stop is happening. There has not been an emergency. It is just Air Force One and President Biden landing today, landing right now, as you can see. And when they take off a little later on this evening, there's going to be another ground stop as well. Now, of course, this isn't the first time that President Biden has been to Austin. I believe the last time he was actually here was when he was vice president, and this was years ago, back in 2013. But of course, we've seen other presidents stop by here within those few years as well. President Obama, President Trump, former presidents, Trump and Obama, both came to Austin, and basically, it seems as though President Biden will be taking the same route from the airport to the LBJ Library, usually the fastest travel route. And that should be I-35, down I-35, and probably Dean Keaton. He could take Manor Road, but either way, those roads will have full stops in place. Traffic will not be able to get through those particular areas.
Again, this visit was supposed to take place back on July 15th. Of course, the president at the time was battling COVID-19. He had to take a few days of rest and recovery, so they rescheduled this visit to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act to this week. And today, the president is in Austin to do just that, to commemorate that anniversary, of course, at the Lyndon Baines Johnson Presidential Library on the University of Texas at Austin campus. As you can see on your screen, live pictures from Austin's airport. Air Force One has touched down and now come to a stop. The president will exit the plane again and join the motorcade to head north to the UT Austin campus. We again expect that to be Highway 71 to Interstate 35, there to at least Dean Keaton, maybe a little further, to loop around for the president to speak there at the library later this afternoon. He'll then leave Austin, headed to Houston to pay his respects to late Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was lying in state in Houston today. So the president, as you take a live look, this is 71.
No
headed out.
Traffic as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, well, at least on that side.
Yeah.
There's plenty of traffic on the other side, but as you can tell, the traffic headed into town has been completely shut off. The feeder road is the way to go, and that's definitely packed. On the eastbound side of the highway there, you can see a lot of traffic there backed up as well. So this is going to be the case for the next, I would say, 30 minutes to 45 minutes for traffic to be diverted and slowed and stopped in some occasion for the president's motorcade to make it safely and swiftly to the LBJ Library. Again, 71 to 35 is what we're expecting. So that will be the scene on Interstate 35 as well, headed northbound from the airport to the LBJ Library. Secret Service, of course, a big part of the entourage for the president. You can see them in the foreground and alongside the plane as they exit the plane to make their checks upon landing. This is standard protocol for any time the president travels on Air Force One. This scene you're seeing now play out on the screen is a standard procedure for the president and his entourage. The president will exit from the back of the plane.
And we don't know who he traveled with, actually, or who is going to be greeting him at the airport, if anyone. Usually when a president does land, there is quite a number of people that are out there at the airport to greet him, the mayor, other Congress people. but I'm not sure who that is going to be in particular today.
Looked like the press corps actually was exiting from the back. I guess the president there will exit. You can see the motorcade now with the president's limousine take its position there with the press corps, photographers and reporters there to document the president's visit here to Austin. As you can imagine, this is a big trip for the president as he made the announcement last week about not continuing his candidacy for president. So his trip to Austin here, really his first major trip outside of his normal visits to Delaware and in Washington, D.C. Since he made that announcement. So you can tell the interest level for the press and all those that accompany the president along these trips is definitely at a high level here in Austin this afternoon.
That's right. I know he's probably going to have some remarks to say about that, since that has definitely been a topic of conversation for a long time now. And also at the LBJ Library today, he's also expected to speak about his proposal for Supreme Court reforms. That's definitely something he's been wanting to talk about, as well as a constitutional amendment that would strip presidents of immunity from prosecution. And as we can see, Mayor Watson is just out there now. Just
walking along. It looked like
and I believe Lloyd Doggett was out there as well.
And I think that's Congressman Doggett. You can see the line. There's Mayor Watson.
They're getting ready to say hello to the president, welcome him to Austin.
You can see the line of people there to welcome the president here to town, includes the mayor of Austin. I think Congressman Kassar was there. I thought I saw him as well. Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who was the first U.S. Congress member to call for President Biden to drop out of the race earlier this month. Of course, then many other voices from the Democratic Party followed suit, which ultimately led to the decision that was made last week. As we're zooming in now on the door, this is the door President Biden will exit off of Air Force One. Again, you're looking live at Austin's airport. Air Force One has landed about 10 minutes ago. The president about to exit the plane to greet those dignitaries, or I guess they are going to greet him and welcome him to Austin. He'll then enter the motorcade and head to the LBJ Library, where he will speak on the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act being signed by then President Lyndon Baines Johnson back in 1964. The line of dignitaries.
There's some House Democrats out there as well, and Judge Andy Brown. They are in position to greet the president as he comes off of Air Force One this afternoon. Cheryl Cole, I saw her out there. And like you said, we have Mayor Kirk Watson, Congressman Lloyd Doggett. Greg Kassar is out there as well, I believe.
We can see the top of Congressman Kassar's head there, just over the limousine. Again, so Secret Service providing that service and security detail for the entire area around Air Force One, and will be with the president, of course, all day today. And then the dignitaries you see there before you, I would assume will make their way as well to the LBJ Library to listen to the president speak this afternoon. Again, that's supposed to happen about 3:30. Normally that would be about, I guess, about a 25 to 30-minute trip from the airport to the LBJ Library. Today it will not take that long, as we saw just moments ago. 71 completely shut down, headed into town. And then I-35, we assume, will be the route from 71 to take him north to the UT Austin campus.
So there's going to be quite a traffic backup, as you can imagine, but TxDOT says these are rolling stops. So once the president gets through one particular section, they'll be able to reopen the highway. So, but of course, right now, 71 totally shut down, no traffic whatsoever, so the president's motorcade can move quickly from Austin Bergstrom International Airport to the LBJ Library.
You do see Mayor Kirk Watson there. We've mentioned he's there along with several members of Congress, in addition to the press corps that follows the president wherever he travels. This group, you can see reporters and photographers along with other dignitaries on Air Force One for this really historic trip to commemorate the anniversary of the Civil Rights Act that was signed into law by Lyndon Baines Johnson back in 1964. Huge part of the legislation and accomplishment for LBJ when he was the president. Of course, his library on the University of Texas at Austin campus, a wonderful place, a beautiful museum, and that is where this speech will take place today to commemorate the anniversary of the very important legislation that was signed by LBJ 60 years ago this year.
And it's such an important piece of legislation, one of the building blocks of America. I truly believe it is. And just the LBJ library itself, so full of so many historic items and so much history that was made for this country. And for President Biden to be there to commemorate the 60th anniversary, it's a huge deal for him to be here.
Really is. It's an important day for the president. Of course, a historic week he just completed, announcing that he will not run for re-election, giving way to his vice president, Kamala Harris, who will now presumably be the Democratic nominee. The president, as you can see live on your screen, has landed. This is Air Force One at the Austin airport, something we haven't seen in a while. Air Force One and a sitting United States president visiting our city, and the day will be fast. He won't be here long as he heads to Houston later this evening, but the president here for a very important event. We haven't seen him deplane yet. We expect him to exit that door. At least that's all indications are. That's the way he's going to come, as the dignitaries and the press are all lined there by the presidential limousine and motorcade, as they will then head 71 to 35, we assume, down to the up to the LBJ library right at 26th Street there, Dean Keaton, as the president will deliver those remarks. Here comes the president now, President Joe Biden.
Walking out of Air Force One.
The 46th president of the United States, entering his final few months as the president of the United States. He will be that until January 20th of next year, when a new president will take the oath of office. The president being greeted by several dignitaries, including Congressman Lloyd Doggett, Congressman Greg Casar. Austin Mayor Kirk Watson is also there. I guess that's Greg Casar he went to right as he deplaned. There's Congressman Casar. Lloyd Doggett is next with the blue jacket there, the gray hair. That's Congressman Lloyd Doggett, the first Democratic congressman to call for the president to exit the race for president. So I'm curious to see the interaction here between those two. I'm sure they've spoken since, but the president there greeting some other Congress members, as
taking some selfies
as they are apt to do these days. Take a few selfies with the Congress members and the city officials here from Austin. I know they're excited to have the president in town. Again, I can't recall him being here as president. I think this is his first trip.
The last time he was here, he was vice president, and that was back in 2013, I believe. So for him to make this one of his last trips as president of the United States, coming to Austin is a pretty big deal, as you can see from the number of dignitaries that are out there to greet him and welcome him to our city.
There's Mayor Kirk Watson, just shook his hand there. I know Andy Brown is there as well.
Cheryl Cole is out there as well.
So no doubt they're all excited to have the president in town today, even though for just a short period of time. It's always great for the city officials to welcome the sitting United States president to our city, the great city of Austin. There's Andy Brown. Yes, he's the tall guy. He's a lot taller than some of the other dignitaries, but it's nice to see them all there to greet President Joe Biden, the 46th president of the United States, as he arrives in Austin on Air Force One for a very special day today at the LBJ Library.
And like you said, it is going to be a very short visit, because what's going to happen is he's going to hop in the motorcade, go to the LBJ Library, give his speech, commemorate the 60th anniversary, and then they will be heading back to Austin Bergstrom International Airport. There will be another rolling traffic stop, another ground stop as he gets back onto Air Force One, and then he won't be going right back to Washington, D.C. He's going to stop in Houston, and that's where he's going to pay his respects to the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. She is lying in state at Houston City Hall today, and she died earlier this month after a battle with cancer. She'd served in Congress since 1994. Before that, she was a Houston City Council member and a diehard Democrat, so she was very well connected to the president, and he is going there to say his final goodbyes and to honor her memory. And after that is over, he will get back on to Air Force One later this evening and go back to Washington, D.C.
Again, you're watching President Joe Biden's arrival at the Austin airport, greeted by dignitaries both statewide and here in Austin, with Austin's Mayor Kirk Watson leading the delegation. He's shaking a few hands. And I've heard this about President Biden. I haven't witnessed this specific event very often, but I've heard that he's very, very interested in speaking with everyone. And I think that's evidenced by what we've seen over the last 10 minutes. He's gone down the line, shaking every hand, taking every selfie. And of course, these people, no doubt, most of them at least, don't get this opportunity very often, especially the Austin city leaders, to speak with a sitting United States president. They're taking and making the most of this opportunity as President Joe Biden is in Austin for a few hours today to speak at the LBJ Presidential Library. Again, the point of this was supposed to happen about 2 weeks ago. The president got sick and had to reschedule, so they moved it to today, and now they are here in Austin to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act being signed in 1964 by then President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Of course, his presidential library is where the president will speak in we thought about 30 minutes. We don't know.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
he's still out there saying hello, visiting with people, some who are old friends like Congressman Lloyd Doggett, some who are newer. Greg Kazar, Cheryl Cole, Mayor Kirk Watson, another old friend. But yeah, he's out there. He's just making sure everyone is spoken to. And that looks like it's going to take a little while.
He's making his way down the line to speak with everyone. I think that's Congressman Coons there. I can't tell.
I can't tell.
He's right behind someone. I think that's... And I know there are some Houston Congress members there as well. I think I saw Al Green. Al Green was there.
And I'm not sure if Royce West was there as well.
A lot of dignitaries, no doubt, in town. I think that's Al Sharpton there, is it not? Maybe not. He's headed for the car now, so we're going to wrap up here. We just wanted to bring that to you live, a historic moment here in Austin. As President Joe Biden is in town, he's going to make his way now from the airport to the LBJ Library. So keep that in mind. If you got a flight this afternoon, expect about a 15, maybe 20-minute delay for the next hour or so. Traffic on 71 already shut down heading into town. Avoid that if you can. And I-35 headed northbound. Expect that to be rolling stoppages as you head towards the LBJ Library this afternoon.
That's right. That could affect Dean Keaton, Manor Road, and Red River Street, since they are in the vicinity and very, very close to the LBJ Library, where the president is about to head right now.
Of course, we'll have live coverage of this coming up on KVUE News at 5. We'll bring you everything we have, in-depth coverage of the president's visit coming up tonight on KVUE News at 5 and 6.
And now we will return to your regularly scheduled programming that's already in progress.